Greetings. This is General CJG here, coming to you with, well, the latest in our State of Star Wars book podcasts. And this time we're tackling our very first book review on one of Timothy Zahn's books, because we talked about Heart of the Empire, but not actually tackled the book itself. So this is our first Zahn book. So yeah, and joining me here, I got.
Well, who else but the Captain Henson?
Mm-hmm. And?
And this is the Spider-Man mini.
Yep. So without further ado, so let's go. Though I think we should first discuss what the book Outbound Flight deals about. So who wants to do a very brief summary on it?
Okay, I will do it. The summary.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll just give the best summary.
Many years before Heir to the Empire, we have the story about the ship called Outbound Flight and how its leader, Master George Sabaoth, met with Commander Thrawn, Mitro Nurodo, the Chiss expansionary fleet, and how their meeting ended up being one of the most destructive things we could ever see. And that's how I describe it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is definitely how it went. So that's a summary. So now we should just talk about the book. So okay, I guess first we should we first discuss that how in the beginning we get these three smugglers that they basically just happen to get into the unknown regions because of a HUD chasing them, only for the HUD to be destroyed, and the three smugglers being taken by the Chiss Ascendancy.
Well, okay, so I'll start this off by giving my experience with the book. So, going in, I knew very little of what the plot was. I'd seen the book at Barnes and Noble a lot. And when I read Heir to the Empire, I was honestly surprised. Like, oh, Thrawn is referencing Outbound Flight. That's a book. And I knew that it told the story of the original Sabaoth, as well as how Thrawn and Sidious cross paths for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that struck me while reading it was how much of this book is focused on just either explaining or showcasing Chiss society and lore. And you two would know more than me. I don't know prior to this how much Chiss lore was explored.
Well, aside from obviously Heir of the Empire being the first book to show any sort of Chiss, as far as the Chiss Ascendancy itself, I know there are aspects that we do explore in the Hand of Thrawn duology, and certainly even in New Jedi Order some books, but those came. Well, actually, yeah, those did came out before Outbound Flight, because I'm a Flight 2006.
Yeah, there was certain aspects in the Darkness trilogy.
Oh yeah, yeah too. Some books that did talk about the Chiss and their culture, but definitely this one is the one that focuses the most on it.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because, I don't know how much of what we get here is from prior books, especially from the non-Zahn books, or how much of it was created specifically for this book.
The Timothy Zahn made the basic outline of the Chiss Ascendancy in the book Vision of the Future, but the New Jedi Order writers was the one that deeply connected it because they were primarily in the unknown regions and they had their own dealings with the Yuzan Bong and Jagged Veil and all that stuff. So it would be primarily the New Jedi Order writers and Timothy Zahn. And this word is important. Reluctantly incorporated their elements into his books.
Yeah, Survivor's Quest actually was the one that actually called it the Chiss Ascendancy, because before it was called Chiss Space. So I guess that book also added some extra lore and details on regards to the Chiss.
Yeah, so the whole point I was going for here is clearly Zahn really loves just focusing on the Chiss because, like I said, we have whole section like the entire. I mean, like what would you call it? Like the B or the A plot?
I mean, just call it the Thrawn plot and the Sabah plot.
Yeah. So the Thrawn. So like most of the Thrawn plot is focused on the group of smugglers spending a lot of time or spending like the entire fucking book with Thrawn, learning about Chiss stuff, and in turn us the audience learning about Chiss stuff. It's clear that Zahn just really loves exploring that stuff. And what clicked in my head was that, oh, this is why Zahn wrote 6 new canon Thrawn books. Because he just not only does he like writing this character, but he also just wants to like focus on whatever the fuck the Chiss are doing. So it's like, oh yeah, now it all makes sense.
I mean, another reason would be Timothy Zahn usually wanted to have his quote unquote his own sandbox, so he wanted to write the Chiss completely on his version. Now that's not that important, but certain aspects of here are referencing New Jedi Order. There's also Rogue Planet, and Timothy Zahn also had to incorporate the other things from the prequel trilogy. So I guess he was restricted. I doubt this was what he actually thought about the Outbound Flight when he wrote that reference in 1991.
Well, I mean, obviously, since at that point, we know what didn't exist in 1991.
The prequels.
But yeah, and honestly, as someone who knew very little of Chiss stuff, I was honestly interested in all of it. I mean, I'm the type of guy who in science fiction is like, give me an alien species, let me see what their society is all about, and that'll hook me. So I was hooked there. In a way, I wish that we could have gotten more of that or seeing more of Chiss society rather than just really Thrawn's ship. But, with the overall plot and what was happening makes sense. And plus, I mean, I got other Star Wars books to go to for that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. So there was indeed plenty to talk about the cheese here. But something else besides talking about the cheese, also the Bagari, that early species that apparently is like what the enemies of the cheese, or at least the rival faction. And the only time they were first ever like mentioned in Star Wars ever was apparently in the Survivor's Quest 2004.
Yes.
So in here, this must be Zahn's basically opportunity to expand more on them, even showcasing more of them and how they interact with Chiss.
This book essentially is the prequel to all most Timothy Zahn things, because this book will explain many of the things, such as Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, The Lost Command, Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future, and of course Survivor's Quest. This is the prequel of prequels for Timothy Zahn universe. And you know what's also interesting about this thing? This is the only novel Timothy Zahn wrote that is set in the prequel trilogy era. At least for the EU. I don't know about the Disney Star Wars part, but yeah.
Actually, now I think about it, that's actually a good point, because I don't recall, excluding Disney Star Wars, I don't recall Zahn writing anything set during the prequels aside from, obviously Outbound Flight. So.
No, short stories too.
Oh yeah, and I guess some short
Well,
stories.
the only one that comes to mind is the was it Fool's Bargain?
Oh yeah, that one.
Was that for? No, I know that was for Survivor's Quest.
It was for Survivor's Quest, a supplement.
There was a short story for or that was reprinted in Outbound Flight. I got it.
That Misencounter, but that would
Yeah.
be a slight stretch because that's like
Yeah, that was released in 1995, but still.
Yeah.
It's still set during the pre.
Yeah, I guess.
There's that, yeah. Something that I gotta mention is how how apparently George Cardas, like how Thrawn like trusted him the most, while the other two smugglers they were like, yeah, not too. Well, he was indeed letting Maris pretty much also learn about the culture and everything. But well, as Kento, it was like, no, this guy only cares about just his own being. And Carlos, he was the one that trusted the most. But then shit was definitely going downhill much later on into the book, which I found pretty interesting.
George Cardas, if anyone knows, is yet another thing from one of Timothy Zahn's novel. Specifically, he first appeared. I think it's the only book he appeared. Never mind the first appear one in Vision of the Future.
Mm-hmm.
In Vision of the Future, George Cardas is more like a old smuggler legend who was really, really ill and something. Now, it doesn't really explain how this George Cardas would eventually turn into that George Cardas
Yeah,
because they don't explain anything.
yeah, I was also wondering how that happened. So that definitely is one of my questions. I probably another source explains it. I don't know. So we'll have to see about that one. But there is one thing to mention about George Cardas and in how much he then decided to go by himself to talk to the to the freaking to the freaking Bagari, which yeah, that's some balls right there, especially considering that they were not really, the kindest of people or even the most honorable, respectful. Those guys were just they were just shit people. Legit
All
shit.
part of Thrawn's plan to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And it is said that due to that, the slaves were free. Specifically, there are a species called the Geroons, or the Geroons explained. Now, the reason why Geroons are important here is because in Survivor's Quest, the Bagaris actually appear in the Chiss Ascendancy near the remains of Outbound Flight. And the Bagari disguise themselves as Geroons to say, oh, you rescued us from the Bagari, so we're here to thank you. But their real intention was to have revenge against the Chiss Ascendancy for being almost destroyed years ago. So this is what led them to wanting revenge in this book.
Hmm. I see. Yeah, that was definitely something. And another thing to mention is, okay, I gotta ask you guys: do you think the inclusion of Anakin and Obi-Wan here definitely was well handled, or you just think they were just put there because prequel trilogy era demanded it?
I think it matters to a certain degree because
They did serve a purpose, but they didn't need to be they didn't need to have as much focus as they did.
Mm.
I mean,
But I guess they gave us a familiar face within this
no,
book.
no, there's more like a thematic reason I think they needed to appear. Because if you read the Thrawn trilogy in Dark Force Rising, the clone Joru Sabat seems to have interest in both Luke and the unborn children of Leia Organa Solo. This leads me to assume that, Jorah Sabat and his clone both had interest in the Skywalker bloodline due to how strong they had in regards to their potential in the Force.
Mm.
And I don't think it was a coincidence. I think it was intentional that it was put in that way. What do you think about that, Drew?
I mean, within the context of the Thrawn trilogy, I mean, it just makes sense to be interested in Luke and the unborn Solo twins. Because, I mean, yeah, of course, why wouldn't you? But, I mean, I don't know. Within the context of this book, we didn't really need them here. Like, if you want to show off Sabayoth being a nutcase, you already have Jedi on board the Outbound Flight, and he has an apprentice too. So we could have seen that through what was her name, Lorana?
Lorana, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess with Obi-Wan as a character being the opposite of Sabaoth. I guess it does make sense to have him there, but I don't know.
I mean, it does relate to Anakin's character in a way because if you see Anakin in Episode 2, he supports a person like Palpatine, and he wants more direct approach, and he admires Saba's approach because Saba is like Jedi should do directly rule over people, and Anakin seems to be liking Saba's approach because he agrees with a person like him.
Although once Anakin and Obi-Wan are scuttled off by Palpatine to deal with planetary politics, they're gone. They just disappear from the book entirely.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yeah, they have no role in the story afterward, but the fact that we did spend a lot of time with them, it does feel weird to have them just like disappear like that with no real resolution to anything, like getting their reactions to Outbound Flight just up and well, then again, they wouldn't know, but like we don't get anything from them once they disappear.
I mean, this kind of reminds me. Anakin and Obi-Wan being in this book reminds me of certain things, like such as in the Jedi Academy trilogy, Luke Skywalker meets the spirit of Exar Kun, and in the Clone Wars game, right, Anakin meets the spirit of Ulu Keldroma. This seems like a similar thing. In the Thrawn trilogy, Luke meets the clone Sabaoth, and Anakin meeting the original Sabaoth. So there seems to be some kind of a what is it? It all
Poetry and rhymes.
yeah, it all meant something, and it all comes back. Blah 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 thing going on.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what having Obi-Wan and Anakin there did do was, help show that wrenches are thrown into Palpatine's plan, but he can, find the means of like correcting.
Which he did, and actually that was why I asked the question, because if you read the book, yeah, those two definitely get in the way of Palpatine's plans, but he still manages to pretty much still carry on the plans successfully, and
It's less so of getting in the way and more so
be an annoyance.
he can't allow Anakin to die.
Oh well, yeah. I was gonna get into that. So, and the biggest annoyance or the biggest change of his plan was that apparently the council was like, "Yeah, let's put Obi-Wan and Anakin in Outbound Flight." And and the moment Palpatine heard that from Doriana, he was like, "Who the hell approved this shit? No. Skywalker must not be there. I will personally get him out of there." And he did.
He later arrives in the ship, and there's conveniently some kind of a political conflict in some planet near.
Yeah.
Well, it was more so, I'll manipulate the Senate or whatever to get Palpatine to fucking get them out.
Like that. That is. I find that very interesting and kind of a bit hilarious, but definitely makes a lot of sense. Because I think even Obi-Wan was like, "Chancellor, like, what are you doing here?" Even he was like, "What are you doing all this far away from Coruscant?" Like, I did find that fascinating, but yeah, that goes to show how much Palpatine really wanted Anakin for Order 66 and the entirety of the Empire's ruling. Really goes to show.
Also shows just how quickly he can. I mean, then again, we don't really get like a time frame for like any of the shit that happens in this book, but it couldn't have been too long. So like, he was able to like get that planetary conflict set up, or at least know about it really fucking quickly.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, the book states that Cardiff and his gang was in the planet for like 3 months.
And
Was it 3 months or a month? I don't remember.
Definitely definitely more than a month, because there are times the book says that several days and even weeks have passed, so it has to be more than a month. So, but yeah, freaking Palpatine. When Darth Sidious says he'll do shit and actually get it done, yeah, he actually means it. Don't call it a bluff.
One thing I found it odd. I talked with Henson earlier is that this book was released in 2006, yet Palpatine isn't directly stated to be Sidious in this book.
I brought up the fact that within the context of the story, it makes sense, since the only one who talks to both these characters is Doriana, and he doesn't know they're the same guy. Now, you can make the argument of why the fuck doesn't he know, but the fact that he doesn't know, I say fair enough.
I mean, okay, before Order 66, before Episode 3, who of everybody in the galaxy knew that Palpatine was Darth Sidious? Like, in universe, who knew?
Maybe Masamida, and then there's Tyrannus.
Well, okay, well, obviously Tyrannus would be one of them.
I would say I would say quote-unquote apprentices don't count.
Yeah, I meant outside of the Sith, as in basically the contacts and acquaintances of Sidious, like who knew. I'm pretty sure Paige Stage is one of them, or Sate Prestige.
Yes, Pastage knew. I think Tarkin knows.
Tarkin. I actually don't. Did he really know? That's fascinating. I actually don't know. But yeah.
Cloak of Deception implies that he knows or something. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Well, for whatever reason, this guy doesn't know yet,
And if you actually read Thrawn Trilogy, it states that Thrawn says even back then, during Outbound Flight, the Emperor knew the importance of getting rid of the Jedi. And if you see Vision of the Future, it says Admiral Park, I think, says like, oh, Palpatine sent a task force with Doriana to destroy Outbound Flight. So it was clear that at the least that Thrawn knows Palpatine is Sidious. Well, at least later timeline-wise.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's a later thing.
Yeah, I mean...
Because you'd have no fucking reason to know that the Chancellor and this Sidious guy are the same.
Not to mention, Thrawn was able to easily figure out, yeah, Doriana, yeah, you're working for somebody higher up on the food chain. You're not the one in charge, and your Neimoidan guy is not the one in charge. I want to speak to the one who's in charge. Like, his own deduction skills and his own intelligence led him to an audience with Darth Sidious. If he's that smart to get that, which not many get, by the way,
it's kind of... But I do find it weird, because Thrawn Trilogy and, the head of Thrawn Duology clearly outright says the Emperor / Palpatine sent a task force to destroy, Outbound Flight. But in here, it's just Darth Sidious. So I'm wondering why Timothy Zahn decided to now turn into Sidious instead of just saying it's Palpatine.
Let's be real. It's because the Thrawn trilogy was done before the prequel trilogy, and the same goes with the Hand of Thrawn duology. So that's the reason why. So that's more of a real life situation, more so than in universe one. So that's pretty much the reason why. I don't see any other reason. And even then, I mean, Palpatine sent the Force or the Emperor, and it's Darth Sidious, still the same character. So at the end of the day, nothing changes. Still the same.
I mean, yeah, like I previously said, the book and the future books does not state whether Thrawn knows Sidious is Palpatine. But in retrospective, since Thrawn said Palpatine was the one who told him the importance of destroying the Sith, in retrospective, Thrawn knows Palpatine is Sidious.
I'm pretty sure he would have known, because again, Thrawn is goddamn smart as hell in terms of figuring out identities and cultures and all sorts of stuff. I mean, and if he managed to straight up rat out the master of Doriana, like just like that, like yeah, he would have easily found out. Oh yeah, Palpatine, Sidious, they're the same person. Like, I do not see a scenario where Thrawn would be dumb enough to not know that they were the same character. I don't see it. There's no way. No fucking way. He had to have known at least sometime during the Dark Times or the original trilogy, somewhere in there. He definitely had to have known. What do you think, Henson?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. Though something I gotta mention, and actually this caught me by surprise, but it's mostly because I had not read Survivor's Quest yet. And if I had, I actually would have known that this was a thing. And apparently, Thrawn has a brother called
Oh,
Thras. Or, well,
Mitrasapis.
yeah, but yeah, or his core name Thras. So the reason why I say Survivor's
Syndic.
Quest is because Survivor's Quest is the book that introduces him to the Star Wars universe. So yeah. So I didn't know about his brother until reading this book. So there you go, connecting the dots.
Same.
So that definitely caught me off guard. And Dross definitely, he ended up dying in the Outbound Flight project, crash landing him in the asteroids. So,
You know what's funny thing about that?
mm,
The abridged audiobook doesn't actually show them destroying the remains of the Outbound Flight.
wait,
The abridged audiobook ends right after Lorana and Thrash says, "Hey, let's go destroy this thing," and then it just ends. They don't show what happens. It just ends after that.
well,
And then,
that,
of course, I ask, who listens to the abridged audiobook?
yeah, go for the unabridged.
Oh, the unabridged is for the blind people only. I somehow managed to download it up from torrent, so you're not gonna get that easily.
Yeah, there's that, yeah.
And then real fans read the damn thing.
Well, there's that, yeah.
Yeah, so if you ever wanted some Thrawn family drama, here you go.
Yep, we got it, indeed. There is that. I'd like to mention how the situation that pretty much convinced the Senate and the Council to pretty much greenlight Outbound Flight. Like I'd like to discuss that. Basically how they went to pretty much travel to Barlock and settle that dispute. And and Windows like Obi-Wan, you and your Padawan, keep an eye on Sabayoff, please. That was the only
Oh
wrench in the
yes,
plans.
Jorah Sabat is certainly an interesting character. I
Oh,
would describe Jorah Sabat as everything wrong with the Jedi, or everything the public deems wrong about the Jedi.
I would describe him as a dark Jedi in hiding. Well, not
And
really, but
I would just say this is Jorah definitely has an awesome scene where he stopped a missile in mid-air or something? Was
yep,
that?
he stopped in the middle
That
of the
was
Force.
yeah, that was cool.
It was pretty awesome, yeah. Too bad that it was all planned by Sidious.
But the way he solves a conflict is kind of problematic because he just forces the corporate alliance and what was it, the mining union, was it?
Yeah, it was one of those.
And he just forces them to have an agreement because Jorah's sub doesn't really want to deal with it, so he just forces them, and he essentially doesn't really solve any conflict.
Well, it's no wonder why Anakin likes him so much. Well, then they should be forced to.
Oh yeah.
By who? Someone wise.
Hey,
Jorah Sabah definitely isn't wise, but
hey, now that you mentioned that, Henson, maybe that line from episode 2, he got it from that encounter in Barlock. Joe Sabaya forcing the two entities, the guilds, pretty much just finally settle their differences. Maybe he got it from there.
and I mean, appearance-wise, something was fixed, I guess. In the long run, nothing was resolved.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about this?
Mm.
If you read Thrawn Trilogy, Dark Force Rising states that Jorah Sabaoth was the Jedi advisor to Senator Palpatine.
Sabayev being the advisor to Palpatine.
Yeah.
Was he? That's actually a good question.
Of course, this book doesn't state this because I guess Timothy Zahn forgot it or something.
I mean, it could be possible. I say that because Sabayev also shows up in Dark Plagueis and Cloak of Deception. So maybe he did advise a few things before, but it's been a long while since I've read those books, so who knows?
I mean,
that.
I guess him being his Palpatine's advisor would further explain why Palpatine wants to get rid of, or why Palpatine considers him a threat specifically, and like no one else.
I mean,
Or like a
it.
big enough threat to have Outbound Flight be a thing.
I mean, being his advisor does make sense from this view because Joruus and Palpatine seems to have a not so formal relationship. He Sabaoth seems to talk to Palpatine very directly without any formality. So I guess that's due to how they knew each other when Sabaoth did advise him.
Oh, turns out I found a source that pretty much says that yes, Sabayev was an advisor, but it was years before Outbound Flight. So
So yeah, the reason why Sabaoth could just talk to Palpatine without all the formalities is because they knew each other for a very long time.
yeah, indeed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so basically, yeah, Sabayev had he basically had become Palpatine's advisor in Jedi matters. They appointed him on that a few years after the events of Andor, which basically they are in like 40. Well, it says it's 44 BUY. The source of this apparently it's the Star Wars role-playing game revised core rulebook. That's one of the sources. So he was indeed an advisor just before the events of Outbound Flight. So it happened before. So then what was the source you said that said he was an advisor? Dark Force Rising or
Yeah, Dark Force Rising.
then in that case that book didn't lie. It's just that it didn't say when specifically. So that's the only thing. So it still applies. So Sabayev was indeed an advisor just years before the Outbound Flight project happened. So that's pretty much it on that. But talking about Samayov, okay, this guy, oh Christ,
This guy is a nutcase.
Yeah.
Okay, slightly less of a nutcase than what the clone we see in the Thrawn trilogy, but a nutcase nevertheless.
Yeah, he's got okay. This guy, I swear to God, there is no difference between him and the clone. Maybe just a 1% difference, being that the clone is just slightly crazier. But yeah, they might as well be the same, honestly, because
I made the argument before the recording started that if Sabayoff didn't fucking die in this book and lived all the way to the Thrawn trilogy, what we see in the Thrawn trilogy is just the logical continuation of his character. So really, it's just the same fucking character.
yeah, I mean, like, it was assumed that this guy was just crazy because, like, all the trolling stuff messed up his head because of the Force sensitive clone. But, like, Timothy Zahn, why did you make this essentially the same character?
I guess because one reason could be because at the time that Sabayev was doing all this shit in Outbound Flight, they were kind of running thin in numbers of Jedi. They do mention that in the book, which
No. I'm asking why did Zahn make the same character?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like basically in universe, they were running thing on Jedi, so they had to get this guy as one of Jedi. But by the time they realized this guy can actually be kind of a crazy dictatorship like bastard, it was too late. So that's what I mean.
And this guy, let me tell you, this guy literally said, "Oh, you cannot decorate the house. I mean, the quarters of Outbound Flight because it might cause a mutiny." What?
Everyone who isn't a Force user, particularly Jedi, are lesser beings who should follow Jedi. Specifically, me.
And he literally says something like this: "We are the Jedi, the ultimate power in the universe, and we will destroy everyone who stands in our path."
Yeah,
Like,
when I read that, I was like, that sounds like a Sith.
Like, give me this guy's backstory because clearly shit happened to him to lead to this. I would really love to know.
Well,
yeah,
I could
and the interesting thing is, like, we're reading this, right? There's like some kind of a, like, we're waiting essentially. We're waiting how the time when Thrawn and Sabaoth would eventually meet. We all know what happens. These two meet, Sabaoth, and then eventually Sabaoth dies, right?
Yeah.
So the interaction with him and Thrawn is the thing, most thing I was expecting and waiting for.
Yeah.
A insane man versus a perfectly calm, intelligent man. Which side will win?
Well, basically, Savayev did not win, and
And somehow, Bergeron goes and says, "Oh, even Yoda is wrong, and he knows everything better." Like seriously, how did this guy become a Jedi Knight, let
um,
alone a Jedi Master?
well, apparently the reason is that apparently his untrained potential drew the attention of the Order of Force Wielders to the Jedi. Following Jedi tradition, Sibav was claimed from his birth parents and brought to the Jedi Temple and basically Coruscant, and that's where he started training. And by 53 BY, now 17, he joined the Jedi Studies and from a with an education from a university known as the Murnic University, so on and so forth. He continued training, and then he joined the ranks of the Jedi Knights. Basically, we don't have much in regards to his time before becoming a Jedi Knight, but
his arrogant part wasn't really that unexpected. Well, I didn't know it was this skill, but the Dark Force Rising basically states that Saba declared himself a Jedi Master. And even back then in the 1992, it is stated that, oh, becoming a Jedi Master is something the Council should agree to make someone a Jedi Master.
well,
One does not simply make a Jedi Master, cannot declare themselves a Jedi Master, but Saba just did. He just declared himself.
You know, it's no wonder why Anakin was pissed. You know, this dude just like bitches about it and he gets master, but Anakin doesn't.
Yeah. Quick fun fact. Apparently, the Star Wars role-playing game book says that Sibav did indeed give the title of Jedi Master himself.
Yeah.
Which the Jedi Council was like, but because of the results of what happened with what Sibav did, with the efforts of a certain uprising, they were like, okay, well, yeah, you earned it, so keep the Jedi Master title. So he did indeed bestow the title of Jedi Master himself. It's just that everybody was like rolling along with it.
Yeah, I mean, the guy just declared himself a Jedi Master, and everyone just like, just give him what he wants. I guess they just went along with Saba because it's better not to argue with the man.
Look, man, I mean, we don't want to fucking deal with him. Just like call him master, just so we can shut the fuck up.
Calling him a master, we don't want to deal with this idiot. Also,
My God,
we don't want him to like kill another person.
Oh my! Even though he was gonna kill probably plenty with his shit.
I mean,
we don't want another HR nightmare.
I mean, even back then, even before the start of this book's events, George wasn't just declaring himself a master, like right? And you know what's even more shocking?
Mm-hmm.
This guy trained several Jedi Padawans even before Lorana. Why would you give this guy a Padawan? This guy's not stable.
You know, it actually makes me sad and kind of sympathize with Lorana because she had to deal with that guy for God knows how many years, and even after she's finally Jedi Knight, like he's still giving her shit. Like
it doesn't even sound like he likes having Padawans.
Yeah, that too. It's like, holy shit.
I mean, no. Forget about that. How is this guy allowed to have, like, he says, like, to Obi-Wan, he says, like, if you have as many Padawan as I have, you can, you can criticize my philosophy. Like, why would the Jedi Order give this guy a lot of Padawans in the first place? This guy's not stable.
I just wonder, like, the political and all the galaxy problems must have been so big at the time to let not only Jorus become a freaking Jedi, but also to start training Padawans. Like, they must have been really low on Jedi Knights to let him be taking Padawans.
No wonder Anakin was annoyed in Episode 3.
And Episode 2 as well. Might as well put both.
This idiot asshole. No. Anakin doesn't consider him an asshole, but this guy who acts like whatever he wants, however he wants, without any restriction, becomes a Jedi Master, but he cannot become a Master, right? I guess it was really unfair, now thinking about it.
In a sense, yeah. Though of course nobody wants to tell to Anakin, oh, the reason why he's a Jedi Master is because he's just calling himself that, and we just roll along with it, like it's not actually official. Like that's the one thing that forgot to mention about Joro Sabayo. The one detail of that.
And the Thrawn trilogy has a similar scene where Joros basically goes. It's basically something like he basically goes to a planet in Thrawn trilogy, heir to the Empire, and kills the ruler of the planet. And he basically forces people to agree with each other and says, "I know everything. I am a Jedi Master." Like, there's barely any difference between the clone and the original.
You might as well retcon the clone as being the original.
You might as well say, "Oh, Joro Sabat actually used essence transfer to put himself in the body," because that would actually make logical sense.
Oh Christ! Yeah, like Savayev really is like okay, yeah.
Yes, it does make me wonder, like, having a clone, especially in the context of the Star Wars universe where clones don't have the personalities of their originators, with like, well, I mean, I guess the Star Killer clone, but that was like a lot of weird shit going on with that guy.
Star
But
Killer's an interesting one, but of course we know that without Force Unleashed 3, we're not gonna get some more answers to what happened to not only the light side clone, but the supposed dark side clone that's still hidden. So it's odd with that one, but even if we exclude that, we have also the clones of X1 and X2 in Elite Squadron, and X1 turned to the dark side, but X2 actually still maintained his mental sanity and was able to even become a full-fledged Jedi Knight.
well, I mean, I'm not talking about the mental states. I mean, like the personalities. Like X1 and X2 are separate people from the guy they came from.
Fallen Gray.
But Sabayoth, the clone, is just Sabayoth.
Yeah.
And I don't even think you can blame his like crazed mental state on just cloned force users being crazy. By the end of the fucking book, he's already like I mean, he was already losing his mind. By the end of the book, yeah, he snapped.
He go full retard.
So that by the time we get to Heir to the Empire, if he hadn't died, that's just how he would have turned out, honestly.
And it is implied that the clone Sabat also has the memories of the original. And the clone doesn't really know that he is a clone, so I guess the memory transferred himself. Although it's kind of weird that why he calls himself Joruus instead of Jorus.
Well, the reason why is because, well, obviously, real life reason is the one that kicks in here. But even excluding that, well, I don't know. I mean, the guy's already insane. I don't know, and the clone probably thought that's the real name, but I don't know. It's just, God, I have no idea. It's just the clone is just fucking crazy, and so is the original. So yeah, I don't know, no difference. Honestly. So.
And then this guy, there's also one of the most horrendous things he does. In the middle of the night in Outbound Flight, he literally kidnaps the children without the consent of the parents and tries to put him because, well, we want to train him as a Jedi. And the parent says, "Hey, I don't want to train him as a Jedi." And Sabat says, "No, I know the Force. You don't, so shut up."
Yeah, oh my god, yeah, like seriously, Savayev might as well have become a fucking Sith, if you ask me. He might as well be a fucking Sith. Like he talks like one, he acts like one. Like I just don't know. Yeah, I know we've been asking this a lot, but how the fucking hell did the council not see through it? Seriously, it's like goddamn.
I think they saw through it. They're more like they don't want to deal with him.
God.
It's more of a liability, so they just say, "Hey, goodbye, Saba. Never return back to Republic Says ever again."
Makes you wonder what the hell was Sabayev doing, not only at the time of episode 1, but also in the 5 years between episode 1 and Outbound Flight, and not to mention the ones before the events of episode 1. Like, what the hell was he doing all that time?
In episode 1, I can tell what he was doing in episode 1. He was in the Senate chamber.
He was?
Oh, Darth Plagueis says he was.
Oh, okay.
So I get.
Okay, well that. But what about before episode 1 and after episode 1? What the hell was he doing?
I don't know. He became a master because he self-proclaimed himself.
Oh yeah, yeah, that did happen before episode 1. Yeah. So he did that, and then apparently he was made Watchman of the Alderaan sector and was involved in the mediation of the crisis of the Alderaan ascendancy contention. So I guess he was doing that, and during the Naboo crisis, apparently Sabayoff had despite having a friendship with Palpatine, he actually supported Bail Antilles to become the Chancellor? Okay. Sure, I guess. Backstab your longtime friend, I guess. Okay.
And there's also one of the scenes where, Thrawn tells to. We gotta discuss Thrawn later, but Thrawn states that, there's a Sith Lord called Sidious that states, there's a unknown creatures in the unknown regions, and he says something like, there's no such thing as Sith currently. They all died years ago. You're lying. And I was like, did everybody forget about Darth Maul? There was like,
I don't think they did. It's just that again, Sabayoff is so goddamn crazy. He'll believe even his own fucking lies. I believe it.
I mean, Darth Maul was less than 10 years ago.
It was 5, actually.
6 to 5, let's say. Like, do you forget about Darth Maul? My.
I really think the guy just believes anything that comes out of his mouth, to be honest.
And then this guy decides to change the schedule of Outbound Flight, decides to, remove engineers so that his Jedi could all take over.
Yeah.
Holy shit, Saba.
Oh my god. Somebody make a dark side version of Joe Saba. I mean, I know that clone exists, but seriously, like just somebody have a picture of him just having a red lightsaber and dark side clothing, like Sith clothing. Seriously, I'd love to see that.
And you know what's the most weird thing? No Jedi Master nor Jedi Knight decides to stop Saba. They just let him do whatever he wants. And then it was too late because he got most of them killed in Outbound Flight. So this is the reason, because when you read Survivor's Quest, they hate the Jedi. Except Lorana Jinsler, because Saba was a goddamn idiot and an asshole that got most of them killed. They hate the Jedi because of Saba in Survivor's Quest.
Yeah, the guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, this whole fucking thing, Outbound Flight, it was gonna fucking fail. It was not going to last.
And you know what's really weird about this thing? Thrawn literally allows Sabaoth and the Outbound Flight to, hey, you can go around the chip space and to go wherever you want. And Sabaoth's like, no, we are Jedi. We are going through chip space.
I actually have to wonder. Let's assume that Outbound Flight actually does get through chip space, Chis Ascendancy. They face no enemies, no nothing during that time, and they managed to get as far away from the galaxy as possible. What do you think would have happened if it actually went that far, like to the edge of the galaxy?
I don't know. They originally said that they were going to vote and remove Saba from power, from taking fully over, but I don't know. Maybe he will go and become a dictator in the unknown regions. I mean, there was also someone saying that Saba tried to build his own Jedi army and later return to the Republic over or something.
You know what I think would have happened? I think the moment they got to the edge of the galaxy, Outbound Flight would have destroyed. By whom? Guess who?
Soros?
No. Well, okay, maybe. I guess.
No. Okay. The far outsiders. We're not gonna literally say who they are, but later.
Yeah. So, those guys. Yeah, the far outsiders, which we'll definitely discuss in a bit. But yeah, they would have been destroyed by them. So, indeed, and yeah, and. Well, should we talk about them now? Because I actually do have to mention stuff regarding them that involves Thrawn as well. Should we talk about them, or we wait a bit more?
We talk about the other characters if you can.
Okay, well,
Thrawn.
okay,
And let's
so
talk
Thrawn.
about the other primary character, Thrawn.
Mm-hmm. Mifra Nuruoto.
Yeah. And I have to emphasize this, something Timothy Zahn and his senile ass seems to forget. You're not supposed to show what Thrawn is directly thinking. In Disney Star Wars book he does.
Yeah, but in here he didn't. He was always in third
Yeah,
person. We never saw Thrawn's thoughts.
yeah. We see him from other people's perspective, which is the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that is true indeed. I gotta ask you, Henson, thoughts on Tron in here compared to Head of the Empire?
Well, I mean, it's been like 2 to 3 years since I've read Heir to the Empire, but from what I can remember, not much of a difference. Still the same character, albeit, I mean, in one case, he's with the Empire, so he's more willing to kill innocent people, but it still lines up with his goal of no matter the cost, protect the Chiss ascendancy. And if that means killing innocents, so fucking be it. Although in this book, he does seem to like not. He seems like uncomfortable with it, albeit like very subtly, but it's still there. But by the time we get to Heir to the Empire, it's like, gotta do what you gotta do.
I mean, in this book, I wouldn't describe Thrawn as a villain. He seems more hero and noble, but in the Thrawn trilogy, he's definitely a villain.
Oh yeah, he is the main
In
villain.
here, he seems more heroic.
Yeah.
It actually makes me wonder who's the real villain in Outbound Flight. Is it Sidious? Is it Doriana? Is it Cav? Is it Bagari? Like who is it?
I think it's Sabaoth. He's the reason for most things. Sabaoth is the main antagonist. Okay, he is also the protagonist, I think, but I think he's the main villain.
Well, I mean, considering the fact that. Actually, I'm trying to think. Because the book has many different protagonists. But in terms of like an antagonist specifically, yeah, Sabaoth definitely. The Vagiri, however the fuck you pronounce them.
The Bagari.
Vagari, definitely antagonist.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's really it. I mean, yeah, Sidious is there, but he's not like he's a presence, but he's not like in it. I guess he is an antagonist because whole point is to destroy Outbound Flight. But yeah, I mean, Thrawn is definitely like a protagonist and wouldn't really. I mean, if you're looking at the Outbound Flight's perspective, he is an antagonist. So I don't know. When you're dealing with different sides and both of them have equal amounts of screen time, it's hard to say like who's really an antagonist here.
Mm. I guess yeah, that would indeed be.
Because the thing is, an antagonist doesn't mean villain. It just means someone who opposes the protagonist. But there are a lot of protagonists here.
Yeah.
So
And you know, from Thrawn's perspective and the Chiss, Sidious is much of an antagonist towards them. So
Oh, the entire thing was all his fucking plan.
yeah, it was his plan, but Sabaoth was clearly a threat to everyone involved in the story, including possibly triggering the Yuzan bomb. Sabaoth was an antagonist to the crew in the Outbound Flight. Sabaoth was an antagonist to Sidious, which he needed to be removed. Sabaoth was also an antagonist to the Chiss Ascendancy. So I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, Sabaoth seems to be the main villain slash antagonist.
Yeah, yeah, that is indeed something. So in this case, then I guess the protagonist would be who? I mean, I guess maybe George Cardes and Loriana maybe could be. Like who's the protagonist?
Lorana could also be one. Thrawn could be one. Maybe Doriana.
Maybe.
It has the Star Wars tradition of focusing on many characters.
Oh yeah.
but in this case, we don't really have like a character as the protagonist. Well,
or even two or three.
I guess Cardis or
It seems
Thrawn.
it seems to lack a central focus character.
Could be Cardis. And yeah, we cannot say Anakin or Obi-Wan because they were pretty much
Oh, fuck
out of
no.
they were pretty much out of the story by the last third.
They're glorified cameos.
I wouldn't call them cameos because they did have plenty to do in the story. No, I think
That's
more
why.
of a cameo would be something like say in this book just having Windu. That would be a cameo because he just was there for like a few pages and that's it. That
No,
would be
I
a
say
cameo.
that's why they're glorified cameos.
Yeah, because in terms of like story importance, not much. They didn't need to be here from a story perspective.
Well, they do one good thing being here. At least it's a better prequel to episode 2 than the official prequel book for episode 2.
Yeah,
At least we
this
got that.
was a good palate cleanser after my previous book was the exciting prequel to episode 2, The Approaching Storm.
I guess there is that, yeah.
Yeah, staring at the sun is more exciting than reading that book, but still.
That's something. Yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about characters in Thrawn, can we mention just how Thrawn was like able to not only deduce that Oriana, was working for somebody else, but talks to Sidious, and then basically Doriana tells Thrawn about the real reason for Outbound Flight, or well, I guess in a way, kind of manipulating it a bit, but basically saying that Outbound Flight, the reason why we want to destroy it is because we don't want it to reach the edge of the galaxy, because then the far outsiders will pretty much either destroy the ship and make them strike the galaxy before the Empire is born, or they could capture the ship and learn of its functions and other stuff. So basically a lose-lose if the ship actually got to the edge of the galaxy. So can we now mention who these far outsiders are?
The Yuzan Bong.
Yep. The Bond
Gasp!
themselves.
Shock!
Yeah.
Oh, and this is one of the things because this is reluctant reference number 2, I should mention, because it is said in the past that Timothy Zahn did not like the Yuzan Bong because, in his opinion, it did not seem to fit Star Wars or something.
Makes you wonder why he. Oh well, this was more of a reluctance because if they're going to be talking about basically the unknown regions and the edge of the galaxy, you do have to mention the Bong list this time.
Since the new Jedi Order was still going on at this point in time.
Actually, Jedi Order ended in 2003.
Because in Vision of the Future, it seems like Timothy Zahn said in the Empire of the Hand, there was like unknown. There are numerous threats outside which froze the blood of the average human being or something. So Timothy Zahn, I guess, seemed to plan some kind of a invasion force, and Crimson Empire, with the introduction of the character No Manor, tried to plan certain stories. I guess
But
it all fell apart, and then New Jedi Order came out.
yeah, definitely. So that pretty much indeed happened, and so yeah, he definitely was forced to call them as the far outsiders. Yeah, Rogue Planet they're also mentioned as far outsiders. So
Yes,
that book and
speaking of Rogue Planet,
Mm.
I have to mention it is said that Jorah Sabaoth's another intention for going outside the ship and having Outbound Flight is to find the disappeared Jedi Bergier.
yes, Bergier, the bird-like Jedi that went with the Bong, that later becomes a big important character in the New Jedi Order books.
Of course, if you read Rogue Planet is a strange book which barely connects to New Jedi Order itself, but it mentions that Bergier went to Zunama Sika to do something. I guess I forgot what it was, and then she disappeared. And George Sabaoth in this book mentions that Anakin and Obi-Wan went to find Bergier, and they never managed to find her. Well, you're not gonna find her for another 50-something years, so that's that.
40-something years, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's 50. New Jedi Order is 25 years after the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah.
And this thing is 26 ABI, so it's 50-something years.
Oh, whatever. Okay, so yeah, so that's how long it takes. Yep. So the Bong mentioned here is fascinating, and this, alongside Rogue Planet, is the only sources that call them the far outsiders, because every other source calls them the Bong. Well, except Prince of Empire, of course, because in there that was more of a retconning Nom Anor into being a Bong. So
No, no,
they
no.
call him there.
Force Heretic Trilogy 3 does call them far outsiders.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Well, the Force Heretic trilogy. Yeah, to some extent, but by that time they also called them the Bong, so it's not like they only call them as a far outsiders, only as that name, so they call them as both. So,
Yeah.
but in Rogue Planet and in here, they only call them as far outsiders. No word of the Bong or Yushun Bong, like none of that. So
With their biological technology and all that stuff.
yeah, so it isn't definitely satisfying to definitely hear about the Bong. And it makes sense that the Chiefs Ascendancy would have run-ins with the Bong because they're in the unknown regions, they're far away into the galaxy. So, and
Yeah.
of course nobody else would know about them other than the Chiefs Ascendancy because, well, the Chiefs Ascendancy did not really have much communication outside of their own space. Like, they barely interacted with anybody in the rest of the galaxy, aside from, I guess, the Bajari and, of course, the Bong. So yeah, it makes sense that they would be, like, the only ones that actually know of the Bong. Now, of course, we have to ask how Sidious knows about them, but then again, it's Darth Sidious,
I
so I
mean,
really don't question it.
it's kind of in Legacy of the Force. It is mentioned that Bergier once used to be the apprentice of Sidious.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she was competing against Tyrannus to become the next Sith.
Wait, what?
And then
Okay,
she later ran away. So to Zonamasika. Maybe she could have told him. I don't know how that works, but it's assumed that it's the case. Don't ask a lot of questions about Legacy of the Force and Bergier. That's a controversial topic, so that's that.
Yeah, that definitely raised questions, but okay. So anyway, so in that sense, then yeah, it definitely is fascinating and that. So and also I like how Thrawn, even in this book, he shows his mastery in military and tactics. The same type of mastery in military tactics, especially against space combat and stuff that he's shown in the Thrawn trilogy. He shows it here and against the Trade Federation. The goddamn Neimoidian Kev was so damn stupid into thinking that he was gonna crush him and his small force, but then turns out no, Thrawn crushed you.
And that guy did not know when to shut up.
Oh yeah, he. Well,
he's a Neimoidian, all right.
Yeah.
Most Neimoidian, like Newt Gunray, at least knows when to shut up.
And also knows
and when not to talk.
And he also knows when to not question Darth Sidious, which this Neimoidian certainly was doing several times.
But this guy is a goddamn moron. So, yeah, this guy eventually dies.
Yeah, let's be real. He was gonna die because how damn dense he was in his mind. Like, so stupid. So yeah, and then of course, well, I guess something else that we could mention in regards to this book is how the three smugglers, two of them were interested in learning more about the Chiss. One of them, nah, I just want to get out of here, get my money, get out of here. And so yeah, and
one of them was really, really into Thrawn.
Oh, yeah.
That will be Merit.
Yeah, the female.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's not to like about Thrawn aside from the fact that he probably became a bit more on the sadistic side later on, and also served the Empire. So. Yeah.
In this book, it is stated that the Chiss never attacks until they're attacked first. So, Thrawn attacking first might be considered problematic to them.
I guess in a way, yeah. Yeah, indeed. So, yeah. And, well, what else do you guys want to talk about the book?
I primarily wanted to talk about the eventual meeting of Thrawn and Doris, because that's the thing we all been waiting for a long time.
Ah, yes. Okay, well, yeah, let's talk about how Jorus almost killed Thrawn with a force choke.
Okay, eventually the two met because we all know these two had to meet.
Mm-hmm.
It is all written in the past. And Thrawn politely asked Master Sabaoth to remove his ship from its people's territory. And Sabaoth, like the genius he is, says no. And Thrawn's like, no, and then they like continue to argue for each other. And eventually, the Bagari came out of nowhere, and then they have a three-way fight between the Bagari, Outbound Flight, and the Chiss.
Mm-hmm.
A complete mess of a thing.
Yeah, Christ on a mighty pedestal, like Jorus, I mean, this, like, just, it actually makes sense seeing how how this happened. Like the way the original Sabayoff was basically interactive with Thrawn here. It just makes all the more sense how Thrawn later on in the future always had a Ysalamiri with him whenever he talked to him, because he had already seen what the original was going to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and no way am I gonna let that happen again. So yeah, I'm gonna have this little alien with me so that shit will not happen again. So, like, yeah, so that explains all too well how I pretty much knew that. Yeah, if I'm going to talk about go interact with Sabayev again, even if he's just as insane and deranged clone, I'm gonna need to make sure that they don't use the Force on me. And he found a way. So
Yeah.
that is just pretty.
And then there was a scene where Thrawn completely defeats the Outbound Flight. Sabaoth tries to strangle Thrawn with the Force, and then, of course, Sabaoth, even when he lost, does not give up. He doesn't know when to give up because he's just like that, right?
Yeah,
And he's gonna do his way, even at the cost of everyone in Outbound Flight. And eventually, since Thrawn was being choked to death, Doriana decides to press a red button, and that kills Sabaoth once and for all. Well, until years later he comes back as clone, but that's another story.
Oh, yes. Seeing a character like Thrawn, who's always so in control, it's nice seeing him put in a position of submission because it's like, because a character like Thrawn can get. A character like Thrawn is really easy to fuck up when they're just really fucking smart and know, like, everything. So it was satisfying for me on that level.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. And you know, it makes me wonder, like, if Savayoff and Thrawn had actually met face to face instead of through
Oh, they did.
communications. Oh, they did. No, no, no. I mean, after the whole battle, like, when Savayoff and the whole Outbound Flight were unable to pretty much defend themselves. Basically, when Savayoff was completely angry to the point of wanting to kill Thrawn. How do you think that would have gone if they were in person instead of, in comm channel?
Thrawn would die, no question.
Well, I guess, yeah. But I guess it was lucky that Doriana decided to push the button and order all the bolter droids to fire the radiation droids and kill everybody, the radiation bombs, and kill everybody on board, including Sabayoff. So he definitely
Not
saved
everybody.
Us. Well, not everybody, yeah, but a good
Survivor's
chunk.
Quest has survivors.
Well, yeah, there were survivors, but of course,
Most.
yeah, and Sabayoff definitely had to die there. Yeah. Which does lead me to the question of how the hell did they get his DNA to clone him?
Oh, before they left, due to a concern about a virus, they got tissue samples for the crew of the Outbound Flight. So, Sabaoth, some organization in the Republic / Empire has a blood sample of Sabaoth.
Okay, yeah, that explains it.
Yeah, it does.
Which, yeah, in that case, it makes. Wait, that makes you wonder why they didn't, also make clones of Obi-Wan and Anakin? Because didn't they also put them all of them through it?
Don't ask too much questions. I don't know how to answer them.
Well, that's something.
Timothy Zahn did not think of it.
Yes, I am very curious what led to the creation of Sabayov's clone. Like, who, and maybe it is said somewhere, but like, who did that?
I think it's like Palpatine tasked Saba's clone. The Dark Empire source book basically says like Palpatine had drawn Saba's clone guard some secret thing in his one of the Wayland facility, I think it was.
Yeah,
right, was that?
Yeah, it was the way.
And the Dark Empire source book basically says like either Saba ignored Palpatine's orders, or Saba was so insane he basically ignored Palpatine, did not follow Palpatine's orders, and decided to run it his way. Which makes me ask the question that why would Palpatine clone someone who's already this much problematic and who's most likely not gonna follow his orders? Something does not make that much sense, does it?
I do have to also. Okay, so Sabayev was cloned using the very fast Spartak cloning cylinders that basically make them grow a lot, pretty quickly, like much quickly than others, and so it does beg the question of what would have happened if. Say, Sidious, somebody else said, let's clone some more Jedi besides Sabayev? Like, that would have been interesting. Now, of course, according to Dark Force Rising, that these were basically like using this method, these Spartak cloning cylinders, in the same way they used to clone Sabayev. They're basically the ones that will create the mentally unstable clones. So, though granted, Sabayev's clone was just as insane as the original, so I guess.
So I guess his clone was a success.
Well, there's that.
Okay, maybe so. I have to emphasize slightly more insane.
Yeah.
Than the original.
Yeah, because we do know that Luke Skywalker was also created using the same technology Sabayev had made him in the end with what was it, Dark Force Rising, the final command,
the
last command, yeah. And yeah, of course, both Lukes fought, and that other Luke never actually said any words or anything. He just fought, and that's it. And then Mara Jade killed him. So of course, the chopped hand from Bespin was the one that made that clone. So it does make me wonder if they really are mentally unstable, or it's just whatever excuse they use to not go with that cloning ability of cloning them in such a very quick manner. Like,
I mean, Timothy Zahn must have forgot, because even in the Thrawn Trilogy book, Thrawn states that this clone is clearly insane version of the original clone. But like, I mean, if I read that passage in retrospect and after reading Outbound Flight, or let's say chronological order, I'm saying, what do you mean, Thrawn? This guy is as insane as the original. Maybe slight difference, but this guy's basically the same person.
Maybe the clone got more insane. I don't know, but I see him as almost the same, but maybe he got more insane. I don't know.
And one thing I've been wondering is, like, I guess people like Ulier and the other people, Ulier, someone who later appears in Survivor's Quest, and these normal people, they might not stop Sabath, but there were like 5 other Jedi Masters inside. What are they doing and just letting Sabath do whatever you want? Like, what is wrong with you people?
It's possible that maybe they, just as the Padawan that had suffered a lot of shit from Sabayev, Lorana, it's possible that they also don't want it to, they were also probably afraid of dealing with him just as much as she was.
I mean, is Sabayev hated that much all by the Jedi Order? Is that what I'm trying to understand from here? That nobody actually wanted to interact, just let him do what he wants because they just don't want to bother dealing with him? Is that what I'm trying to interpret as?
Henson?
Hell if I know, my guy.
Yoda and Mace Windu clearly do not want to screw with Sabaoth, Obi-Wan reluctantly goes under the orders of the Jedi Council, and the rest of the Jedi Masters barely seem to care about what Sabaoth is doing. Lorana Jinsler is basically useless and does whatever Sabaoth says, and never voices her opinion against him.
You know, it actually makes me wonder if the Jedi Council were actually more afraid of dealing with Sabaoth than they were against Sidious. Let that sink in.
I mean, it does make kind of sense because this Sabaoth can literally disobey the orders of, Palpatine's dark side Force clone, and Palpatine does not seem to bother punishing him. So maybe, who knows?
Who knows on that one? So yeah. Anything else to mention on this book?
Not really, I guess.
I've said all I had to say.
Okay, so you guys want to mention the expanded universe connections on this one, which are probably plenty.
I leave
Yeah.
that to you guys.
Okay, so let's go with, I guess, the most obvious EU connections: the Thrawn Trilogy, Pen of Thrawn Trilogy, Survivor's Quest. Like, of course,
Yeah.
they're the most obvious.
Yeah, and then there's Rogue Planet.
Yeah, definitely. Rogue Planet. And of course, we have to mention Rogue Planet will be the one that does tackle the bonk, but of course, we know that since this book released 2006, it will definitely have connections to. It likely would have connections to the Jedi Order, but then again, the bonk themselves, they were already mentioned Rogue Planet, so might as well be those. Yeah, and as for other connections, there's obviously the fact that the the goddamn insane fucking Sabaoth, he apparently obviously appeared first Heir of the Empire and then in other sources, so no surprise there. And the Outbound Flight project itself, it goes as far back as freaking Heir of the Empire, which is just like. I still baffled that you can actually, have that story in your mind for 15-something years, since 1991 all the way to 2006. So some continuity there. There's obviously some other references, like Kinman Doriana. If you guys like that guy, he was first mentioned in Vision of the Future, and he first appeared in Poco Deception. So there's him. Then there's Roxoli, the planet, appears in the Central Atlas, and the Star Wars Cyclopedia. The Star Wars Cyclopedia, of course, has plenty of references here. So there he goes. Then, of course, the Cruise TIE system appeared first in Survivor's Quest, but it comes here in Outbound Flight. Like, plenty of references to Survivor's Quest are in here. Like, a lot of stuff that basically first showed up in there that show up here. And then there's the Brack Kento, who also he has an indirect mention in Star Wars Adventure Journal 7, but also the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia and even the Essential Reader's Companion, which, yep, that's fascinating. And the Delta 12 Sky Sprite class ship, the one that was for Obi-Wan and Anakin, that ship, turns out that that same ship ended up appearing many years later in Survivor's Quest. Luke and Mark found it.
Essentially, that is an explanation why those two ships for some reason exist in Survivor's Quest. So this book explains why those two Jedi ships were there.
Yeah, because basically Obi-Wan, they were meant for Obi-Wan and Anakin. So there you go. That's one way to that's actually a good non-continuity. And of course the Bagari, they show up in Survivor's Quest, but they fully show up here as well. And so not something there. Obviously, not a surprise that this book would have ties to the Unknown Regions supplement book from Wizards of the Coast, because of course, the Unknown Regions, and this book takes place in there, so total freaking sense, if you ask me. Then, of course, George Cardas. He was first mentioned in Spectre of the Past, but also appears in Vision of the Future. Of course, he's in here, so absolutely no surprise there.
His reference is towards more Survivor's Quest, because in Survivor's Quest that it mentions that George Cardas has some connection with the Chiss Ascendancy,
Now we
which
know
is
why.
later explained in Outbound Flight.
Yep. So, so there you go. This book ties that, and then of course the Chiss Ascendancy itself first mentioned in Mission of the Future, but where we really first see it is actually in New Jedi Order and first identified in Survivor's Quest. So yet another like so many references here are tied to pretty much Zahn's books, but hey, I mean that's some good continuity right there. And well, then there's Maris Farasi, who actually was first mentioned in Mission of the Future. I guess probably mentioned by Josh Cardes. So, and yeah, also indirectly mentioned in Star Wars Adventure Journal 7, Missed Encounter. So yeah, and that seems to be all of the connections that I found. There's probably some other more, unless you guys got some other ones to think of.
No.
I don't.
Okay, well, then in that case, we go now into the conclusion. So, who goes first?
Well, okay, so in conclusion, I really needed this fucking book after reading The Approaching Storm. It was good overall, I'd say. Nothing really stuck out to me as like aggravating or annoying. So, good time for the most part.
Okay, is that it?
Oh, and just that if you're curious on what Lorana looks like, go to the Japanese cover. I think that's like the only illustration we have of that character.
And also George Cardes to some extent, because that's like the only one I've seen of him, and of course, Lorana. Yeah. So there you
Yeah.
go. Mm-hmm. Doan.
We finally managed to read a book about Thrawn and Timothy Zahn, so yeah, there's that. After wanting to do this book for 2 years, yeah, we finally recorded, so I'm happy with that.
Okay. As for me, well, the book was definitely a good read. I actually did enjoy it. Definitely a few surprises that I didn't expect much, and it was awesome reading about Thrawn again. Of course, EU Thrawn. I'm talking about, and Outbound Flight itself was definitely an interesting one to have read, and also interesting seeing what the original Sabayoff was, and also fascinating seeing Palpatine, aka Dark Sidious, once again, up to his own shenanigans to rule the galaxy. It was an awesome read, and yeah, if you like the Thrawn trilogy, or you just like Thrawn, or you like the Unknown Regions, exploring that, then this book definitely is worth a read. And if you're,
Or if you're a Timothy Zahn fanboy.
I guess there's that too. And if you also like seeing more adventures of Anakin and Obi-Wan in between the prequels, then this also is a good read, even if they're not necessarily the main characters, but still counts, so definitely go for it. So, yeah, and that's pretty much all I gotta say. So, yeah, we'll see you guys on the next State of Star Wars video. Bye-bye.
But
The
may Warrior's fortune shine upon us.